All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Hope everybody's having a great day today. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And this video is sponsored by LearnKey Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. Whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity, could have interest in marketing or another high-demand field, they offer over 30 certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. So, great company. They've been in business for 37 years. They've helped over 200,000 students through the years, and they place about 100 students every month in well-paying jobs. So, the link's in the description below. Thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy for being a proud sponsor of The Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about, I think maybe the best story of the day in Ninerland was written today in The Athletic by new 49er beat writer Vic Tafur, who wrote an article about Jake Moody, the Niners kicker, and how Jake had a struggle last year. He's in a career crisis this year. He's competing against Greg Joseph to try to save his NFL life. I mean, the Niners drafted this guy with a third-round draft choice. How about that? Third-round draft choice for Jake Moody. We'll see. We'll see if he can get it done. So far, it hasn't happened. So, you look at what the Niners have done, they're trying desperately to make their third-round draft choice from a few years ago pan out. He's only the second kicker drafted in the first 3 rounds in the last 19 years. So maybe that was not a good decision to draft a kicker. But they did, and he went through a rough year last year. And it's a great article today from Vic Tafur talking about how Moody is changing his routine and his mechanics. So we'll get into it. The one thing about Jake, I guess he didn't want to blame the ankle for his struggles last year. So, he changed his approach from taking 3 steps to 2 steps before kicking field goals. So he missed 9 of 20 field goal attempts over the last 9 games. And the Niners brought in Greg Joseph to compete against Moody. If Joseph and Moody battle to an even thing, I would go with Joseph. And I'm on record as saying that just because he's the veteran. New 49ers special teams coordinator is Brant Boyer, and he says he's excited that Moody has the potential to bounce back. Boyer told us a couple weeks ago, he said there isn't a special teams coach in this league that didn't have him rated number 1 coming out of college. And that was Boyer a couple weeks ago. So Boyer went on to say, hey, man, if the kid gets his mind right, which I think he's doing, I think he'll do a heck of a job for us. I really do. So they think it's more mental than physical. Interesting. Moody connected on 13 of 14 field goal attempts to start last year. And then he tried to make a tackle on a kickoff in week 5 against the Arizona Cardinals, and he got his right ankle badly, kind of in a bad angle, and he got toppled. It was a major sprain of his ankle. He missed the next 3 games. And when I asked him in an interview that I did with him in the locker room before he came back after the 3-game hiatus, I said, hey, is there any pain? He's like, no, just a little bit on the actual spot where the ankle was sprained. And then he went on to say, and that is my kicking spot. But the Niners obviously didn't think enough of it because they were like, hey, come on back. Even though the kickers they had filling in, Anders Carlson and Matthew Wright had not missed. And yet they went back to Jake, and he wasn't the same guy that connected on 13 of 14 to start the year. And, he said after the injury, I lost that rhythm I was in. And once you lose the rhythm, it's tough to get back into it. And there's no question about it. You could see it. He was in full rhythm coming out of camp. Then he got the injury. Then he came back from the injury. He was not in rhythm, and it just never was the same the rest of the year. He missed 3 kicks in his first game back, 2 out of 3 attempts in week 13, and then he hit rock bottom in week 17 against the Lions. He missed 2 field goals and a PAT. You can't miss a PAT in the NFL. But Jake's trying to put it all behind him. He said those kicks are irrelevant now. It's in the past. I like to have a one kick mentality, as in the next kick. Right now, I've been kicking the ball really well, so I feel like I'm in a good headspace. So that's really probably it. I mean, it sounds like the Niners feel like all of his concerns are between the ears, and if he's in a good headspace now. It started in March, so he hit the practice field in Naples, Florida, with longtime kicking coach Brandon Cornblue. They have been together since Moody was back in middle school, and they did their usual ball contract drills, but then they started tweaking his stance and how far back he was from the ball at the snap, and then he decided to get rid of the third step, the jab step. And, I guess Cornblue says that most young kickers do use 3 steps. Half of the NFL kickers use 2 because they have strong legs and they can afford to trade a little power for better accuracy. So it sounds like every step you take, there's always a risk of being inaccurate. I guess Moody also talked to Robbie Gould, former Niner kicker, and they had a relationship. I asked Moody several times about Robbie Gould through the years, and he has great respect and affinity for Robbie Gould, who obviously was the guy that preceded him in this job. And after he talked to Robbie Gould, he agreed that, maybe a change made some sense. He said, I felt like I've had some inconsistencies with my first jab step, Moody said. So I figured if I just get rid of that step altogether and I just take 2 steps instead of the 3, it's less room for error. So that's interesting. That is interesting. I never would have thought of it that way. Cornblue was quoted. He says, there are some things that technically you have to adjust. You do lose a little bit of power. How much varies from guy to guy, but you're trying to improve your consistency and your accuracy. That being said, Moody is still hitting the ball 65 to 70 yards. So the one thing Jake commented I thought was kind of interesting is he said that he has more time now to see the ball after it's snapped because there's less movement. There's less running up to do to the kick. So, as far as has he lost distance, Jake thinks he's lost maybe a yard or 2 in distance, but that he's more accurate. And at the end of the day, nobody ever says, man, our kicker missed that kick, but did you see how far and how strong that kick was? Yeah, he kicked it 65 yards and it absolutely jammed into the back of the net. Yeah, of course he missed it by 4 feet, but what a kick. No, all that matters is accuracy. Nobody cares. If it goes through the goalpost, nobody cares that it sneaks over or the bottom post, the crossbar, or if it literally goes firing past both goalposts right down the middle, hardest kick in history. I mean, nobody cares. There is no stat. You notice how we all cover football. Nobody's ever said, hey, blankety blank had 4 field goals. Oh, really? How hard did he kick them? Nobody cares. All that matters is that you kick it between the uprights. Oh, yeah, you know what? Our kicker made 5 field goals, but did you see how soft? Did you see how soft they went through the goalposts? I didn't like that. I didn't like how soft that was. Were they good? Yeah, they were good. Well, then let's not worry about that. And so Jake Moody's got more than enough leg. He's got some he needs more accuracy and maybe a little less leg. This guy's the poster child for let's trade some leg for some accuracy. I think he would gladly kick the ball 60 yards and not 70 yards if he could make it go through the uprights every time. But I think it's interesting. He says he has more time to see the ball because he's got less body movement. So he sees the ball better. Maybe it's focusing on the ball that he needs to do. And he pointed to the 2020 COVID-shortened season, as an example of how he thinks this could go. In that season, he missed 3 of 4 attempts at the University of Michigan. So, it was obviously one of his worst years. And then, he kind of thinks that last season could be something to build off of. He said in college, he had his worst season the year prior to winning the Lou Groza Award as the top kicker in the country. So he's hoping that, that trend kind of repeats itself. That year when he won the Lou Groza Award, Moody made 22 of 24 field goals, several in bad weather, kicking there in the Big Ten, home games in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He didn't miss one of his 56 PATs. He was 56 for 56. He was the nation's top kicker in college. So, he thinks that he can rebound from last year's disastrous year and have a big year. But the Niners have brought in Joseph. Greg Joseph has played for 6 teams and 6 NFL seasons. He's made 116 out of 141 field goal attempts. One other change to the equation is the Niners brought in a new long snapper, John Weeks, who was, last 15 years has been with the Houston Texans. And Brant Boyer said adding Weeks is a big deal for Moody. The total operation being smooth and everything like that will certainly help the kid for sure. So I don't know if that's a anti-Tabor Pepper statement or just, hey, man, John Weeks is just the awesome long snapper. But according to Brant Boyer, it matters. It matters. So now we're going to see what a healthy Jake Moody can do. That's really it. What can a healthy Jake Moody do? He's only the second kicker drafted in the first 3 rounds in the last 19 years. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are dangling on this one, and they know it. They invested a really high pick in a kicker thinking they had no other needs, only to see that kicker be really, really inconsistent. And this is on the tail end of having Robbie Gould, who was one of the most consistent veteran kickers in football during his stint with the Niners. So out goes one of the most consistent kickers. In steps a guy with a great leg, but has been very, very inconsistent. The Niners don't want to give up on him because Shanahan remembers giving up on Graham Gano years ago in Atlanta only to see him have a very good NFL career, and they're afraid that Jake Moody is going to go somewhere else, figure it out, and have a 10-year run as a kicker. But once again, this is why you don't draft kickers high, because it's already a pressure-packed position, and you're just introducing more pressure when you draft the guy on day 2 of the NFL draft. Then suddenly he's got to be a super kicker. He can't just be a good kicker. He's got to be a great kicker. And then when he fails, then you feel like the need to stick with him longer. Why? Because you invested a 3rd-round draft choice in him. So there's a sizable investment there. And you don't want to look bad. And now you get a little stubborn. It's like, well, wait a second. Will you really believe in this guy? Well, do you know what you're talking about? Do you know what you're looking at? So now the Niners are caught in between. They invested a 3rd-round pick in this kicker. They want him to be successful. They've changed out the special teams coordinator. The new guy has clearly been brought in with the mandate that, Jake's got to be your kicker. They bring in a veteran in Greg Joseph, but I get the sense he's there for a nominal competition. I get the sense that if they battle to an even battle over the course of the summer, that the kicker is going to be Jake Moody. I think I'd go the other way. If these guys really are even, let's go with the veteran. Let's go with the guy who's played, 6 NFL seasons. Let's go with the guy who's attempted more than 100 and almost 150 NFL field goals. Let's go with the veteran. Last year was a lesson in whatever it was. Maybe the lesson is don't draft a kicker in the 3rd round, or maybe it's don't rush your kicker back if he hurts his plant leg. I don't know what the lesson was, but last year was bad. And now you got Greg Joseph going up against Jake Moody this summer, and it's on. I mean, it is on. Starting not even in training camp. It's on now. These guys will hit the field during OTAs, and they'll have some kicking competitions between now and the cut down in August, and let the best man win. And if that best man happens to be a veteran that you signed off the street and not the kicker that you invested a 3rd-round pick in, so be it. So be it. No more time to screw around with this. Jake Moody, the job's yours. And if Greg Joseph kicks even with you or outkicks you this summer, the job is his. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.